Harry sat behind the wheel of his car, the engine humming softly as he prepared for the long drive ahead. It was a moonless night, the darkness enveloping the road like a thick blanket. He took a deep breath, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. The anticipation of the journey ahead filled him with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The plan was simple: drive through the countryside and reach his destination by morning. Harry needed some time away from the city, away from the chaos and noise. As he set off into the night, the only sounds were the tires against the pavement and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. The road stretched out before him, disappearing into the darkness. The trees lining the sides seemed to close in, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Harry's eyes darted from one shadow to another, his imagination playing tricks on him. He tried to shake off the unease, reminding himself that it was just his mind playing tricks on him. Hours passed, and Harry found himself in a remote area, far from any signs of civilization. The road became narrower, winding its way through dense woods. It was then that he noticed a figure standing on the side of the road, barely visible in the dim headlights. Harry's heart skipped a beat as he approached cautiously, unsure of what he would find. As his car drew closer, he could make out the silhouette of a woman, her clothes tattered and torn. She waved frantically, her eyes filled with fear. Harry slowed down, his instincts telling him to keep driving, but his compassionate nature compelled him to stop and help. "Are you all right?" Harry asked as he rolled down the window. The woman's voice trembled as she spoke. "Please, you have to help me. My car broke down, and I've been walking for hours. I just need a ride to the nearest town." Harry hesitated for a moment, his mind filled with thoughts of caution. But the woman seemed genuinely distressed, and he couldn't believe her stranded in the middle of nowhere. He unlocked the door, and she got into the car, gratitude evident in her eyes. They continued their journey, the woman guiding Harry through the maze of unfamiliar roads. The tension in the car gradually eased as they engaged in small talk, distracting Harry from the unease he had felt earlier. He couldn't help but notice how familiar the woman seemed, as if he had seen her somewhere before. As they drove deeper into the night, the road became increasingly desolate. Harry's unease returned, his eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. The woman grew quieter, her gaze fixed on the road ahead. Something about her silence unsettled Harry, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Just when Harry thought he couldn't take the suspense any longer, they came upon a small, isolated gas station. It was a welcome sight, offering a brief respite from the eerie drive. Harry pulled over, the car's engine humming softly in the silence. The woman thanked him for the ride and stepped out of the car, disappearing into the darkness. Relieved, Harry watched as she walked towards the gas station. He took a moment to collect himself before deciding to go inside and stretch his legs. As he entered, the sound of the door closing behind him echoed through the empty store. But what awaited him inside would test his courage in ways he never expected. Inside the gas station, the air felt heavy and suffocating. The flickering fluorescent lights illuminated a dimly lit space, casting eerie shadows on the worn-out shelves. Harry scanned the room, searching for signs of life, but there was no one in sight. Unease washed over him once again as he made his way down the narrow aisles. The shelves were filled with dusty, long-expired products, and a sense of abandonment hung in the air. It was as if time had stood still within those walls. As Harry turned a corner, a sudden noise made him jump. He froze, his heart pounding in his chest. It was a faint whisper, almost indistinguishable. He strained his ears, trying to make out the words. The whisper grew louder, filling the silence. "Leave, before it's too late," the voice whispered, barely audible yet laced with urgency. Fear gripped Harry, his instincts telling him to flee. But he couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled upon something inexplicably sinister. Determined to uncover the truth, he followed the sound of the whisper, his steps slow and deliberate. The voice led him to a door marked "Employees Only." Harry's hand trembled as he reached for the doorknob. He hesitated, contemplating the consequences of his curiosity. With a deep breath, he turned the knob and stepped into a room shrouded in darkness. The room was small, illuminated by a single flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling. Harry's eyes adjusted to the dim light, revealing an unsettling sight. The walls were covered in faded photographs and newspaper clippings, each depicting missing persons from various years. As he examined the images, a cold realization washed over him. The woman he had picked up on the road was among them. His mind raced, connecting the dots. She had led him here to this forsaken place. But for what purpose? Before he could process the implications further, a sound from behind made him turn. The door slammed shut, trapping him inside. Panic surged through Harry's veins as he pounded on the door, pleading for someone to let him out. But his pleas fell on deaf ears. As Harry's desperation grew, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was the woman, her eyes devoid of humanity. A sinister smile played on her lips as she approached him slowly, like a predator closing in on its prey. "You should have heeded the warning," she said, her voice dripping with malevolence. "Now, you will be one of us." Harry's mind raced, his fight-or-flight response kicking into overdrive. He scanned the room for an escape route, his heart pounding in his chest. With a burst of adrenaline, he lunged towards a nearby window, smashing it with his elbow. Glass shattered around him as he climbed through the broken frame, cutting himself in the process. Ignoring the pain, he sprinted into the night, away from the gas station and the horrors within. The night swallowed Harry as he ran, his heart pounding in his ears. He didn't know where he was going, but he couldn't stop. Fear fueled his every step, his only goal to put as much distance as possible between him and the malevolent presence that had almost consumed him. Hours later, Harry found himself on the outskirts of a small town. Exhausted and disoriented, he stumbled upon a police station, desperate for safety and answers. Bursting through the doors, he recounted his harrowing experience to the bewildered officers, his voice filled with urgency. The police listened attentively, their expressions shifting from skepticism to concern. They assured him they would investigate the gas station and the mysterious woman he encountered. Harry was taken to a nearby hospital to receive medical attention for his injuries, while the police initiated their search. Days turned into weeks, and as the investigation unfolded, a series of shocking revelations came to light. The gas station had been a front for a human trafficking ring, with unsuspecting drivers falling prey to their nefarious schemes. The missing persons on the wall were victims, their lives stolen by those who lurked in the shadows. Harry's bravery and testimony played a crucial role in dismantling the criminal network. The woman he encountered was eventually apprehended, along with several others involved in the operation. The town breathed a collective sigh of relief, grateful for Harry's courage in exposing the dark underbelly of their community. But for Harry, the night drive would forever haunt him. It served as a chilling reminder of the evil that lurks in the darkness, waiting to ensnare unsuspecting souls. He learned that even in the most ordinary and mundane of circumstances, true horror can be found, hidden in plain sight. From that night forward, Harry was forever changed. He became an advocate for victims of human trafficking, determined to shine a light on the hidden horrors of the world and to ensure that no one else would fall victim to the darkness he had encountered on that fateful night drive. Irvin sat behind the wheel of his car, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. The night was dark, the moon obscured by clouds, casting an eerie shadow over the road ahead. He had been driving for hours, searching for any sign of the missing little girl, Emily. Emily had vanished without a trace 2 days ago, leaving her distraught parents and a worried community behind. Irvin, a close friend of the family, couldn't bear the thought of a child being lost and alone in the darkness. Determined to help, he had taken it upon himself to scour the nearby towns and countryside, hoping to find any clue that could lead to her safe return. The wind howled outside, causing the branches of the trees to sway ominously. Irvin shivered, feeling a chill creep down his spine. He wondered how Emily's parents were coping, their anguish and fear growing with each passing minute. He had promised them that he would do everything in his power to find their precious daughter. As he continued his night drive, Irvin's thoughts were interrupted by the crackle of his police scanner. He listened intently as the dispatcher relayed information about a suspicious vehicle spotted near an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Irvin's heart raced with anticipation. Could this be a lead? Without hesitation, he changed his course and headed towards the warehouse. The old building stood like a sentinel in the darkness, its windows broken and covered in grime. Irvin parked his car nearby and cautiously approached on foot, his footsteps echoing eerily in the still night air. As he entered the warehouse, Irvin's senses heightened. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the only light came from his flashlight, casting long shadows that danced on the walls. He scanned the area, searching for any sign of Emily or the suspicious vehicle. Suddenly, a faint cry broke the silence. Irvin's heart skipped a beat as he followed the sound. It led him to a small room at the back of the warehouse. With trembling hands, he pushed open the door, and his flashlight illuminated a scene that sent chills down his spine. To his horror, Irvin saw Emily huddled in a corner of the room, her face stained with tears and her tiny body trembling. Relief washed over him, knowing that he had found her, but his heart ached at the sight of her obvious distress. Emily. Irvin rushed towards her, dropping to his knees and enveloping her in a gentle hug. "You're safe now. You're going to be okay." Emily clung to him tightly, her small frame shaking with fear. "I was so scared," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Irvin comforted her, his voice filled with warmth and reassurance. "You're safe now, Emily. We're going to get you out of here." Carefully, Irvin picked Emily up in his arms and carried her out of the warehouse, shielding her from the cold night air. As they emerged into the open, the flashing lights of police cars and concerned faces greeted them. Emily's parents rushed forward, tears streaming down their faces as they embraced their daughter. The following days were a whirlwind of police investigations, interviews, and a flood of relief for Emily's family and the community. The details surrounding Emily's disappearance slowly emerged, painting a grim picture of the events that had unfolded. It turned out that Emily had been lured into the suspicious vehicle by a stranger who had promised her candy and toys. The abductor had taken her to the warehouse, intending to keep her hidden from the world. However, a stroke of luck had favored Emily when she managed to escape her captor's clutches momentarily, hiding in the corner of the room until Irvin arrived. The police launched a manhunt, and it didn't take long before the abductor was apprehended, thanks to Irvin's detailed description and the evidence found at the scene. He was charged with kidnapping, and the weight of justice began to press down on him. In the aftermath of the ordeal, Irvin became a local hero, praised for his determination and selflessness in finding Emily. Although he was relieved that the little girl was safe, he couldn't shake off the haunting image of her terrified face in the dimly lit room. Despite the nightmares that plagued him, Irvin knew he had made a difference. He had brought a lost child back to her family and helped ensure that justice would be served. It was a small victory in a world where darkness sometimes prevailed, a reminder that there were still good people willing to stand up and fight against the terrors that lurked in the night. As the days turned into weeks, Emily's laughter returned, and her parents found solace in her innocence once again. Irvin, too, began to heal from the harrowing experience, knowing that he had played a part in rescuing a young life from the clutches of despair. The night drives continued for Irvin, but this time they were filled with hope and a renewed sense of purpose. He became involved in community programs to raise awareness about child safety, determined to prevent such tragedies from happening again. And so, the night drive that had started with fear and uncertainty ended with triumph and resilience. Irvin's actions had not only saved a little girl, but also kindled a spark of courage within himself and others. In the face of darkness, they had found the strength to bring light and hope back into their lives.